Hi everyone. I'm very excited to be here today, and I want to thank everyone here at St. Joseph's for having me come here and talk to you about a topic which is becoming incredibly important from our perspective. So I work for an early stage venture capital firm called Vertex Venture, and as part of the different companies that we invest in, we're increasingly focusing on companies which are working in a more sustainable manner. And therefore, what I want to talk to you about is how you can build real profitable businesses in the space. And therefore, this space is becoming very, very interesting from a business perspective and also from an investment perspective. All right, to set the context, if I can have the next slide up. I've pulled a very, very basic and easy definition of what venture capital means. This is a form of financing where investors like me invest in early stage companies which are meant to have long-term growth potential. So what are we really looking for? We're looking for companies which are disruptive, which can disrupt the status quo in traditional businesses and do so using innovative business models and use technology. And if they are successful, then over the long term, they can become large, scalable, profitable, and at that point, investors like us stand to make superior investment returns. Now, this is incredibly important because everything we do as an investor is designed to achieve this objective. Now, at Vertex, next slide please. We've been doing this for a long time. So we have about $1 billion invested across 80 companies. And what's important for you guys is that these investments are split across different countries and different sectors. So as an investor, portfolio diversification is incredibly important for us. You'll see in the next slide that really the first part of finding good assets to invest in is identifying the regions that we want to go into. All of us here know that India is an incredibly fast-growing economy. We are going to become the third largest country globally by 2030, and that makes India a very important investment destination. Alongside that, we're seeing similar trends in other countries in Southeast Asia, so Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, and therefore these countries are also important for us. Now, the next piece for us to figure out is what sectors we want to invest in, or what are the investment theses that we want to build for the future. And this is really where sustainability comes in as a real and tangible business problem to solve. And that's why we're looking at founders building in this space. So if you see the first chart, this is actually a snippet from the latest United Nations report, which talks about the progress which has been made in Sustainable Development Goals until 2023. There are 17 goals. I've only put a few on the slide. But if you open the report and check, and if you see the progress column, it's pretty much red or orange or at best yellow. So very little progress has been made. And what this means for us is that we expect over the next decade, governments across the world, sovereign funds, and capital allocators will start investing more aggressively in sustainability and sustainable businesses because these are goals globally all of us have committed to. Now, if you talk about India, and if you look at the list on the slide, we are massively resource constrained, and this is already starting to appear in breakages in infrastructure, in healthcare, in water, pollution, etc. So as entrepreneurs, if you were to pick just one of these problems, and if you were to solve even just a fraction of it, that itself would mean a very large and valuable company. And that is why investors like myself are thinking about sustainability as an investment thesis to back. Now, with that context, I want to walk you through some real examples. These are companies which we have invested in, or funds like us have invested in. And these are companies across different sectors. So I'm going to talk you through a few, and hopefully this will give you a little bit more flavor of the businesses that can be built in this space. So moving on. Next slide, please. The first sector we're investing in is the consumer economy, and here we're looking at backing sustainable consumer brands. Now, most of you will know India has about 700 million people using the internet. About 200 million people are shopping online. They're consuming information. They're buying products from Amazon, Flipkart, Nykaa, etc. And what this means is that the new age consumer, the Gen Zs and the millennials, people like you and me, we're very discerning, right? We only want to engage with brands which match our value systems. These are brands which are cleaner, they are kinder, they are healthier, and also they are greener. So that is something which is becoming very prevalent in the trends that we track. The second part of the equation is that consumers in India are very value-led. So we want to consume locally, but we want to give our money to brands which give us good value for money and respect the investment we are putting into them. And if we take all these factors together, we do believe that India is at an inflection point for sustainable brands, brands which are digital first and are building products in a sustainable fashion and catering to the needs of the new age consumer. So in the next slide, I have two examples for you. These are from our portfolio, and maybe you've heard of them. If not, you can always look them up later. One of them is a company called Pilgrim. So this is a beauty and personal care brand. Pilgrim has something which is called a Pilgrim code, and this code ensures that all the products they launch in the market are sustainable across many different factors. They're also innovating on packaging, and they're trying to make the supply chain more plastic neutral or plastic positive. The other company on the slide is a company called Licious. So Licious is an online meat and seafood delivery platform. What's interesting about Licious is the backend that they've created. So Licious procures different meats and poultry directly from producers or farmers. And they built an integrated supply chain using technology where at every node they control quality and they control wastage to make sure that when the product reaches the consumer, it's fresh and of the highest quality. And why is this important? So if you look at the numbers, India has one of the largest percentages of food and agricultural waste in the world. And this has direct implications on how we can grow sustainability as a country and make sure we are secure in terms of food and availability of grain to the population. So Licious is a commercial company, but the technology they are building at the back end is actually very sustainable in terms of supply chain and can go towards solving problems like agricultural waste. This actually brings me to the next thesis that we're investing in, and this is in supply chains to the future. Now, if you take any micro segment in India, you see that the supply chain is extremely fragmented. The speaker before, he spoke about how the recycling supply chain has a lot of these small recyclers and garbage pickers, right? Similarly, you have thousands of small manufacturers or small suppliers or small food processors, and they typically sell their products forward to a middleman. And as a result, what happens is that by the time a product comes to its final destination, it has been through a lot of middlemen, and there has been a lot of waste and inefficiency in the process. There is data to show that most large companies do not have any visibility into really what's going on in their supply chain. On top of that, a lot of the manufacturing in India actually relies on import of raw material from other countries, which from a carbon perspective has a lot of negative impact. It also exposes the company to additional import costs and of course geopolitical risks, which we've all been reading about. So here we are looking for businesses or founders who are building integrated supply chains. These are supply chains which are linked by technology, and therefore they are cleaner, they are faster, they are more efficient, and they are more climate positive. There are two examples on the next slide. So first is a company in our portfolio called Karthana.io. Now Karthana is a custom manufacturing platform. They work with a backbone of 300 to 400 small manufacturers, and using these manufacturers and linking them together through their platform, they're able to generate custom parts for a lot of high-tech industries in India: electric vehicles, drones, robots, machine parts for pharmaceutical companies, machine parts for consumer companies. So essentially, Karthana is a company which can help create an efficient supply chain from scratch right here in India, and therefore fits in very well into our sustainability thesis. Another example is a company called Aruna. This is an Indonesian company, and they export fresh seafood across the world from Indonesia. What Aruna does is that they work directly with farmers to procure the material, but they also integrate with the communities at the grassroots level, and they educate them about reducing overfishing by using technology for demand forecasting or supply management, right? They also work with them to reduce waste, to store correctly to reduce contamination. And therefore, as a result, we're able to generate a very high quality product for export through a very sustainable supply chain. And this is a company which has been growing very, very fast in Indonesia. Okay, moving on to some newer, maybe cooler sectors for you guys. Electric mobility. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have two-wheelers or will buy one as you get into jobs. And so you will know the amount of choice available today in electric two-wheelers. Why is this the case? Why are these vehicles becoming popular? And the economic reason is that the total cost of ownership, which is the cost of the EMI you will pay, plus maintenance, plus fuel, so the total cost of ownership of a two-wheeler or a three-wheeler which runs on electricity is today already lower than a vehicle which runs on diesel and petrol. So these vehicles are starting to make economic sense for consumers and for business use cases as well. On top of that, these vehicles are quieter, they have all the latest connected technology, and of course they're also very good for our polluted cities, and they can help reduce overall carbon impact. So for a variety of these reasons, the government has also been supporting this industry, and therefore we believe that the penetration of EVs will increase in the future. And if we combine the personal and business use cases, this is actually a $100 billion industry waiting to be tapped, and therefore a lot of companies and founders are actually building for this space. So two examples which I want to put on the slide, and if you're from Bangalore, hopefully you've seen the companies, you can go check them out. The first is Ather, and Ather is actually a VC-backed company which is now selling very premium, very high-quality EVs for personal use. The second company is Yulu. Yulu is what we call a shared mobility platform, where anyone, whether an individual or a business, can rent a Yulu bike for their use and then return the bike back to Yulu for Yulu to deploy somewhere else. So it's a shared asset model, and Yulu is now starting to deploy this model also for a lot of B2B delivery fleets. So if you're ordering from Big Basket or Zomato or Swiggy, you may notice that it's a Yulu bike which is coming to deliver the product. And a lot of companies are doing this because by using the Yulu fleet, you can reduce the capex exposure and also become more carbon positive in the process. So companies like Yulu are a very good example of VC-backed commercial companies, but they can also help reduce carbon impact for the business. And if Yulu becomes popular, then for a PIN code, the overall carbon impact for a PIN code in a city can actually also reduce through such shared mobility models. So two very interesting examples, and the bikes are very accessible, so please go try them out. Okay. The next segment, what I want to talk to you about, and also what Mr. George spoke about, is the circular economy. Now, this concept is becoming very prevalent because we're looking for business models where you can extend product life. So if you can get people to use the product more, or if you can enable better recovery or reuse before the product goes into landfill, or even before the product goes into, let's say, recycling, this is a huge win because it leads to direct reduction of waste, and it also speaks directly to preserving resources for the future, and this is an economic priority for governments across the world, and more so in India. So any business which is building in the space has a lot of potential to grow. It's a new and emerging concept, and therefore all of us venture capitalists are following quite closely. I want to highlight two companies again. The first one is called Beepcart. Now Beepcart is actually enabling sale and purchase of used bikes. So if you don't want your bike anymore, you can go to Beepcart and you can sell it. Beepcart will buy it, they will refurbish the bike, they will fix it, and at the time they sell it back, they'll give you a performance warranty. So in essence, they are encouraging consumers like us to buy a used bike and therefore prevent a new vehicle from coming onto the road. And this is a very interesting problem to solve from a circular economy perspective. Now, Cashify is another company, and they're doing this for used phones, laptops, and other electronics. If you look at the data, electronic waste today is the fastest growing category of solid waste across the world. Disposal of electronic waste is becoming very, very problematic from an environment perspective, but also from a health perspective, because once they reach the landfill, there's a lot of heavy metal exposure to anyone looking to pick the product and recycle it. So Cashify is a very good example of a company which is essentially not letting the products go into landfill. And at the same time, they are fairly scaled up. They've raised a lot of money and are doing very well. So again, two very good examples of companies which are building very interesting business models, and they still retain sustainability as their core focus. And these are real examples of companies you can build in this space. The last one I have to touch upon is the carbon economy. It's now become increasingly clear that whether you're a large listed company or whether you're a small company anywhere in the world, at some point you will have to think about measuring your carbon impact, reporting it, and then over time reducing it. And this is not so easy to do because today we don't have the technology to do so. So we're expecting a lot of new technology to be built in this space and a lot of software to be built as well for enabling companies to manage their carbon programs and to measure and report more effectively. Again, this is a very early space. We're seeing a lot of interesting activity. Two companies, very different business models, which are already present. So one is a company called Step Change in India. What they do is they actually build custom enterprise software for any large company who wants to start reporting on sustainability and then over time try to improve on the metrics. Another company in Indonesia is called Atmos. Atmos actually goes to agricultural areas or forest areas and develops projects for carbon offset. Now, carbon offset is a concept where large companies can look to buy carbon credits to reduce their carbon footprint. And Atmos is essentially building a global platform for that. So again, very divergent business models with sustainability and climate as their core focus. So these are some examples that I wanted to give you. There's a lot more happening, but hopefully these are enough to get you guys thinking and also excited about the upcoming hackathon. The thought I want to leave all of you with is that sustainability and business, or sustainability and economic returns, are very closely interlinked together. And my hope is that, and I would encourage you that as you think about what you want to do in the future, you would keep both these hats on and think about both these issues equally seriously. That's it for me. Thank you. And it's been a pleasure talking to all of you.